My journey to communicate with the Sasquatch came while I was doing research for a film I was working on called Oracle. During my research, I met a man named Kuoni Lapsaritis. On the day I interviewed Kuoni at his home, I received my first telepathic communication from the Sasquatch people.
I've been doing, as a cryptoanthropologist, I've been researching the Sasquatch phenomena for 62 years now. And 39 years ago, it was a shock of my life when they started to telepath to me. I wasn't afraid, I was just shocked. And I thought it was a one-time thing and that I wasn't going to tell anybody. But it ended up being ongoing for 39 years. And there was an ET the first time that I was there, interacting with them. And that's because the Sasquatch phenomena is an integral part of the UFO phenomena. Now, the Sasquatch avoid people, and that's because people either get scared or they come back with more people with guns, so they prefer to stay away from people. Now, I've seen them in the physical 9 times. They've touched me 9 times. I've seen them several hundred times where I could see through them as living apparitions because they're interdimensional. They have access to other dimensions. I have talked to people and have documented several hundred cases of people who've experienced mental telepathy. Well, one of the things that I was told by the Sasquatch people about 12 years ago is that they're going to start going out and talking. They're choosing, they're very, very picky choosy, certain people that have a high vibrational frequency, meaning that they are of a spiritual nature. People who are spiritual have respect for all living things. That's basically it. And that they wanted to connect with more people because they said that initially that's their purpose millions of years ago, because the humans have been around longer than what science says, that science is in left field on this, and as far as where humans come from and how all that happened, other than their fantasy trip of Lucy of Africa, of 3.5 million year old supposed relative. Well, it's not true. That's pure baloney. But so the Sasquatch say. They've been around for 200 million years. Yeah, 200 million years. So they want to connect more with people and come out. And the only way to do it safely is not through academia, because they want a body to dissect and take apart and you know, all that. And the Sasquatch consider their departed relatives sacred. Their bones, their bodies are sacred. So they won't allow anyone to do that. So who do they go to but people, again, of a spiritual nature to come out through the public? We don't need science to tell us Sasquatch isn't real when it is, just because they haven't had an experience. But they carry guns, so most of them, because they want to shoot a Sasquatch, where that would be murder. They're an evolved nature people that's been around for millions of years. So my job, though I didn't realize it at first, as I was meeting different people, was the people I meet or hang out with as well are really nice spiritual people. And so they follow me around, and when they see a person who they know is spiritually evolved enough to handle them, that is the mental telepathy, and to share experiences and to guide that person to help them through life, then they'll work with them. They'll start working with them. So I've been telling people how to connect with the Sasquatch people, how to do it, how to think, where to go, because anywhere on the planet, I know where they're at. Once I connected with the Sasquatch people, they're in my life, and they're guides. This may sound strange, but I heard about stuff like this years ago, and I thought people that talked about guides and stuff were, a little strange at what they believed in. But once I experienced the psychic Sasquatch, they're truly guides. They're interdimensional, so they can stay with me no matter what. I can recall going camping with my wife, and the back end of the station wagon was full with all the camping gear, and I could barely see out the mirror from for the back. And all of a sudden, my guide Snowhawk said, "Hey, you guys sure didn't leave me much room back here." And that was his joke, because he can go through anything physical, and he can astral project. They have such control of astral projection, and that they're there all the time. I've become a world authority on the subject without realizing that this would happen. I simply was looking for the truth, and I've written 2 books explaining my journey and all the other people that I've documented that had some very special and very incredible experiences that have changed these people's lives just like they have my life. And you change fast. You can talk about the Sasquatch all day, what you think you know, but you'll never know them until they start telepathing to you and talking to you and sharing information. So many of these Bigfoot conferences, they talk about hair and tracks. Why? Because that's all they have. They drive the Sasquatch away with cameras and guns. They stalk them. Where when I go out, I attract them. They come to me. And these other people are learning the same thing, that they'll come to you. You don't have to stalk them or demand anything or try to summons them in any way. So this is an important step to help the planet. And I simply want to do my part to resolve my karmic issues and to help the planet at this time for whatever all this means in the end. But right now it feels good for me and for everyone that ever got involved with the Sasquatch telepathically as friends. They don't regret it, they just love it. And as I said, their lives will never be the same. It's always a very positive thing.
My name is Sue Walker, and this is my spouse, Reverend White Otter, and we have had a great deal of interaction with the Sasquatch over the years. Otter's experiences began when he was 10, and I'll let him tell that story. My experiences actually began in a very unusual way when I was contacted by some extraterrestrials, believe it or not. And they informed us that they had been exploring this galaxy with some of the Sasquatch nations and were interacting with the Sasquatch here on Earth and had been for millennia. And they were the ones that told us in detail about the multidimensional capabilities of the Sasquatch, as well as a lot about their culture, a lot about them as people, a lot about what they call us, a lot about the translations of what the Ponti call them, and so many details that it just kind of blew our minds for a little bit. When we started writing it all down, We hadn't interacted with any other Sasquatch researchers about this material. And we kind of didn't know what to do with it until our extraterrestrial friends actually informed us, would you please contact this man? And they spelled out his name for us, and it spelled out Kuwani. And so we had to look up Kuwani lapsaritis and his research, and found his books, and then subsequently found Sunbow's books. And what they were writing with their research in the field completely corroborated every detail right down the line of what our extraterrestrial friends had been sharing with us as well. After the first conference in Chewela, Washington in 2016,
15.
3 years ago.
3 years ago, 15.
Okay. So after the first conference, we came back, and one of our local Sasquatch clan leaders came to us at our home, believe it or not, and requested, would you do us a favor? Would you please draw us as we see each other instead of as monsters? Everyone else draws us of evil, mean, awful, nasty-looking individuals. Would you draw the families? Would you draw the grandmothers and the grandfathers and the children and the sisters and the brothers and the moms and the dads? And so said, I'd be happy to, but you need to send me people. And so one by one, they came to us and told us how they wanted their portraits done. And so we spent that first time after this first Sasquatch conference for about 5 months. I sketched and I sketched and I sketched, and we ended up with 60 Sasquatch portraits that first year. Now keep in mind, I hadn't drawn in 40 years. And so I got out everything in my studio and started the illustrations, and all of these Sasquatch came to come to life. But as they posed for me, they talked to me. Some of them came in person, some of them came telepathically, some of them were very, very detailed about what they wanted themselves portrayed as. But they explained to us about some of the multidimensional capabilities that they have. They explained to us everything from how the kids play and games that they do to the things that they build, the structures and why, to what they eat. And so we got a chance, just as we were interacting with them in our home, to hear from them about themselves. After we would start a new sketch in the studio, invariably, for the next several days, there would be activity at night that we would hear from the studio, people turning pages, people moving things around. And no one was in there, no one was in the house but Otter and I. We would be in the living room and hear things going on in other rooms. So they took an interest in what we were doing. Sasquatch are trying very hard to educate us about themselves. They're sharing more and more and more. The Sasquatch are allowing the place where they live to be filmed, much more than they ever have. And the next step, they tell us, is allowing themselves to be filmed in real person once they know that we aren't going to be afraid, and once they know that they're going to be safe allowing themselves to be seen. Because we got a whole lot of stuff coming as far as environmental changes are concerned, and none of it is really easy to handle. And they say we're going to need each other. And so they're trying to explain to us who they are and how to understand them so that we don't have to be afraid of them when they do show up. So I projected out to anybody that might be listening on the mountain. Hi, my name is Sue, and I'm here at this conference, and I just wanted to let you know that one of our speakers has just finished telling a whole bunch of us that you folks are telepathic. And so if you hear any inappropriate attempts at telepathy or loud voices, please forgive them. These people are new to telepathy, but they're trying. And I did not expect any kind of a response, not at all. And so I turned to go back in the room, and at that same point in time, my spouse, who's in the room, yells out at me, "Sue, have you had your seaweed yet?" I eat seaweed for my thyroid, for the iodine. And I'm about to answer him, and suddenly in my voice, or in my head, clear as a bell, comes this female voice, and it's light, and it says, "What's seaweed?" And I realize that I'm getting an interaction, so I don't miss a beat, and I turn back toward the mountain, and I say, "Seaweed is a plant that grows in the ocean, and I eat it for medicine. It grows in the salt water." And then, without even thinking about it, I automatically just returned another question. "Do you have any plants you use as a medicine?" And I didn't know if I was going to get a response or not. And a moment later, there was a giggle. "Yes, chokeweed." And I'm going, chokeweed, chokeweed. And I'm enough of an herbalist to know, geez, I don't know anything called chokeweed. Can you show me a picture of what you call chokeweed? I may call it something different. And a moment later, clear as a bell, in my mind is an image of an 8-foot tall, fully mature, ready to harvest marijuana plant. And she says, "Chokeweed." We pull it up by the roots, carry it over to our caves, throw it on the fires. Our children sleep better. We digest supper better. It takes away our headaches, and then we laugh and sing. But it makes us choke, and so we call it chokeweed. It grows all over in Colorado now.
When I first thought of doing a documentary film about the real Sasquatch, I was rather surprised to find that the Sasquatch were open to the idea. And not only that, but they were excited and they wanted to help. Never in a million years did I expect that they were going to show up for the filming, hang out, and interact with the camera. And even more wild, they wanted to communicate with the world on film.
So my name is Garrett Duncan. I am of the Bitterwater clan, born for the Red Running into the Water clan. My maternal grandfather's is the Mexican clan. Paternal is Minihogans. I come from a small community of Sanasti, New Mexico, and that is how I identify myself as a Navajo individual. I'm an enrolled member of the Navajo Nation, and been doing this work since 2008. By that, facilitating healings, doing a lot of conferences, doing motivational speaking. And so this is something for me, being this ambassador and allocated as such, being the voice for the people to help them in their growth, to help them in their human form understand, why certain things happen. And so I provide the healing. So Sasquatch came to me December 2015 through Kiwoni. So Kiwoni was the one that had brought their energy to me and provided the initial introduction. And at that time, he connected me through more or less their interdimensional aspects. So I was able to see and feel their energy. And their energy came through very strongly. And then what was affiliated with it was a smell. There was a very strong smell, odor, very musky, almost skunk-like. And he told me that that was the males that were coming through. So when the Sasquatch brought this smell, that's when I knew for sure that this was, I wasn't making this up. So their vibration energetically, when I tell they're around, I get a little, I breathe it in, because what's happening is their frequency is matching mine. So their vibration is very high. It's like zzz, and then mine is not that high. So what ends up happening is I have to breathe and adjust to the frequency. At the same time, they have to adjust theirs. So when I tell that they're around, I get a little bit of like, ooh. It feels that way to me. And then sometimes if it's really strong, there's a real skunk or scent that comes with it. It comes with their energy signature. I'll get a whiff of their very intense smell. And so that's how I know. And then they'll start to communicate with me telepathically, letting me know that they're here, just like what they're doing right now. So there's a message coming through from a group of elders right now. As they're stepping forward, we appreciate your efforts in bringing our message to humanity. We express our sincere gratitude for the work in which you are performing. Our joy, our loving hearts and joy are filled with immense gratitude as we bring forward this expression, as we bring forward in a way, in a most safe way for each of you to understand, as those of you of humanity are observing and listening. We chose this way because we do not wish to instill fear. We do not wish to encourage fear. And we ask that you listen with open arms and hearts and feel the resonance of the energy that is emanating through the words spoken, through your recording devices. The frequency that is now being emitted through the recording will hold a highest heart resonance. We encourage each of you also to tune your sounds and vibration to the 432 hertz. And to relay information and express appreciation for each of the sounds and each of your individual hearing, but you will feel this frequency that is coming through. And it is more of a heart resonance that is being adjusted through this device. They're referring to the camera, and they're referring to the microphone. And they're also saying that I'm emphasizing it as much as I could with my voice. And perhaps you are curious as to why we have chosen this medium through Garrett, he openly expresses without fear and has a very strong connection to each of us and is part of our peoples. So we thought that if you saw us in human form, he would be a good depiction and not as scary. I would disagree. She's been, it's a grandmother again that's part of the council. I'm asking her, I'm telepathing with her right now and asking what her name is. Her name is Blue Flower. There's another elder that's coming through who wishes to speak again. This is a tall elder. His energy is very large. It's about probably 20 feet. That's how tall he is. Okay, so I'm going to channel this using their voice. Sound check, just so you are aware, I'm warning you right now. It's going to be intense. Okay. So his energy and frequency is very expressive as so he's talking about this. How do you like my song? So this is his vocal attempts at expressing himself in the form of song. So this is to help more or less relay the information of song from previous conversation. And he wishes to apologize right now if he blows the microphone up. So they're coming in channel, and they just want us to know, want all of you to know, that they find this to be the more effective, easiest way because I'm in human form. And it's because if they were to come and apparate into their physical 3D right now, then it's in a way we go into our survival, we go into our fear mode, and the majority of the collective is not quite ready to see this, is what they're telling me. So they're just coming in the voice.
What would the Sasquatch like to share about themselves, like with humanity?
We love you. The Sasquatch wish all to know that we love you. We appreciate each of you, younger brothers and sisters, and we honor your existence for being here at this time, for being here in your human form to have this experience and to embrace wholeheartedly the energy that the planet has to offer. Very simple, very simply, laughing, smiling, dancing, being in joy, acknowledging the spoken word from the heart, to not use your words in such a harsh manner, to not relay conversation or meaning in such an aggressive way. We are curious beings who have observed the many generations of time, and we saw the growth of your people from many generations. And we know that you have the capacity to heal not only yourselves, not only the collective, but also the planet, as each of you are an extension of her vibration. Whew. You step back now.
Well, in 2012, I was going through like a spiritual awakening and being connected with many more guides and beings beyond the veil. And I lived in Arkansas at the time and was spending quite a bit of time in the woods and doing hiking and foraging and things. And I became very aware of the presence of the Sasquatch people around me, even though I couldn't see them. But I could feel their energy, I could hear them. There were physical evidences, such, you know, footprints and things, and even things being tossed in my direction, knowing that it was not a human or an animal doing these kinds of things. And then Kiwani's books were recommended to me, and so I picked them up and started reading them, and I realized that this was the information that I've been waiting for, and that it was a huge part of my life. I just had a calling and a knowing that this was a deep part of me, and I wanted a deeper understanding of it. And so late in December 2012, I had my first real big experience with them, telepathy-wise, when I went to bed at like 11 o'clock at night. I wasn't yet asleep, and I was visited by a UFO over my home. You could see its bright lights. It was shaking my windows, and it even rattled things off of my television and my shelf, so I could tell that there was really something going on. And at that same time, there was a Sasquatch woman named Suni, as well as a star person named Jai, who visited me. And they performed a healing on me and kept reassuring me that, you know, that everything is okay. You know, this is for your highest good. This is the right time. This is a part of who you are. And even as scary as that situation may have seemed, I was just very calm about it and reassured, and knew that this was the beginning of a new journey. And so shortly after that is when my relationship with the Sasquatch people really started evolving. I was connected also, as well as Suni, who was the Sasquatch woman that was there. My guide, George, who's an ancient one, looks a little bit more human. He's like a Sasquatch human hybrid. And so he introduced himself to me in the most beautiful way. I was guided to take a walk into this little patch of woods that was near my home. And I found this perfect little wigwam teepee structure, and I absolutely knew that a human didn't do this, did not take the time to break down all these branches and to build this. And I was really just very guided and connected to the whole nature realm. Things seemed to come alive. The plants were singing this beautiful, harmonious song. It was just so amazing. And I looked over to this area, and I could see all of these fairies just swarming around in a circle. It was amazing. And so I took the time out. I said, okay, I want to just ground myself and sit with this amazing experience. I opened my eyes, and George was right there in my face, fully visible. I could see every detail of his face. It was just amazing. And he introduced himself and told me that he's my brother, and that he's been with me my whole life, and how excited he was for me to come into this awareness, and, you know, just reassured me that he was going to be with me forever, and, you know, walking me, guiding me on this path on life. So that's really how it all started. Yes, when I connect with the Sasquatch people, it's very much through the heart space. I found that if you try to analyze it with your logical mind, that the connection is definitely not as deep as when you connect with an open heart. And, you know, at first I've had a lot of people tell me that they're nervous about it because they're fearful of the unknown, basically, or something new. But for me, it's just so loving. A lot of times I'll get cold chills, or my body will vibrate. Sometimes there's even different physical sensations. You can feel them in your auric field, or even smell them, or sense them in other kind of obvious physical ways. But it's a very deep, loving connection, and the best way that I can describe it is just love, intense love feeling. And that's how you know it's genuine as well, that it certainly couldn't be some kind of malevolent being, because the amount of unconditional love and light and peace that you feel in their presence. Well, the Sasquatch want us to know that they are our cosmic elder brothers, that they are our blood relatives. They were here on the earth much longer before we were. They've been there, done that a lot longer than us humans have. And although we do have our own free will and choice, and we're responsible, for our own selves and the actions that we take, they're here to be great guides to us and to help us in any way. So if you feel drawn to them and want to connect with them, just open up your heart space and allow them in, and ask them to share what it is that will bring you to your highest self, or to the highest truth and understanding that you need to know. It always comes in bits and pieces, and always when you're ready for it. Even if you don't feel you're ready for it, it's time for you to come into that awareness and to start processing that information. And they are the original carekeepers here of Mother Earth, and that job was passed on to us humans, and we didn't do a very good job of it before now. But now people are really waking up to that understanding that it is our responsibility to take care of our mother, and they want to help us to do that. They have so many wonderful things to teach us, so that we can do that. So open up your hearts and just listen and be and accept. Yes.
Well, my name is Christina Del Rosario, and I am a Sasquatch experiencer. I didn't ever think that I would encounter a Sasquatch or be aware of Sasquatch, but I'm about 5 years into my Sasquatch journey, which was totally unexpected for me. And it started off with an experience that I didn't really realize was Sasquatch. At the time, I thought it was a ghost or something, and I really freaked out. I was going to college at Central Washington University. I had just started. I was emptying my last box out of my car and felt someone come up. I was renting this guest house on a horse ranch, and I felt this person standing behind me, and I went to pull my last box out and heard this most beautiful voice that tickled the inside of my ear say to me, "I've been waiting so long to talk to you." And I was married and was like, yeah, whatever, dude, I'm about to shut you down. So I turned over and nobody was there, but I could feel somebody big there. And it intimidated me, not because of anything other than it was a big, huge, powerful, love, sweet energy, amazingly powerful, amazingly loving, but yet I just wasn't prepared for it. And I quit school, dropped out, moved home, decided I'm not dealing with that because I just wasn't ready for whatever that was. But now looking back, so 7 years went by before I had my next experience. And actually that same experience I had the very next day. I'd gone into the horse barn. I was planning on bringing a horse, and I was looking into the stall and planning my little thing out, looked away, and the same voice said, "Are you ready to talk to me yet?" And I was like, no, out. That's when I decided to drop my classes and have a big freak out, got into my Bible. I obviously needed my Bible, and got into my Bible, got into getting a full-time job, just went a different direction. And it was the day that a day that I had to run the mail at my job, that I stepped outside and heard a Sasquatch screaming in the woods across the river. And in my mind, I said, I knew exactly what it was. Every hair on my body stood up, and I knew what it was. And I started research, every video that I could find about Sasquatch, every sound that I could hear about Sasquatch, I wanted to know what Native American elders had to say about Sasquatch. I wanted to know what these cave drawings were that were ancient. What did those pictures look like? What did they mean? What was their interpretation? I did everything I could to try to figure out what were these sounds and what are these beings, and I know that they're there. And so I took like a year of watching everything that I possibly could about them. And I ran into some of Kiwoni Lapsaritis' videos, which I thought were what lined up mostly with what the Native American elders had said, although I really didn't fully believe. I was thought, you know, ape in the woods is what I'm looking for, ape in the woods, like. But the things that he talked about didn't really match what my mind was saying, like, this is what I want them to be. I want them to fit in this box, and they didn't. So I was going to write it all off until I watched a video, and it said he was talking about how to draw a Sasquatch to you. And one of the things that he said is that you can only be approached by a Sasquatch if you have 100% unconditional love in your heart. You have to have an elevated love frequency. And it made sense to me, like, okay, well, that part makes sense because I got that. So if they're attracted to me because of that, I can see that. But I really wanted to dismiss his work as like not true. So I was like, I'm gonna put this love in my heart. I'm gonna draw this Sasquatch to me, and I'm gonna prove it wrong. I'm gonna prove that no Sasquatch experience happens after that. And I did what he said, and I did have an experience. And it was a telepathic experience, which I still told myself was just myself. Up to this point, you know, I hadn't told anybody about my research or anything because I didn't want anyone to think I'm crazy. And I was married at the time, and during this time, when I channeled the message, my husband started jumping up out of bed saying, there's a hairy man in the window, and there's a hairy man in the doorway, and I'm not crazy. And I just would assure him that I believed him, but he did not know. He did not know what was happening. Well, we had some experiences together, and our relationship came to an end. And as it came to an end, it was really, really hard on me. My heart was broken. I was really having a tough time with it. And I decided during a part of our divorce process, that I was going to channel again. And I tried to bring my frequency up as much as I could. My heart felt like it was just shattered, though, into pieces. And I said, look, I have nothing to give you. If I had fish, if I had, you know, an apple tree, you could have all the apples. If I had something to give you, I would give you. But all I have to give you is love and friendship. And if you're willing to take that, I need help. And I don't, you know, I don't know what you could do for me, but I know you're powerful. And if you're there, you know, please help me. And I was having one of those nights where I was not going to sleep. I was a mess. I was going to be up crying all night. I was just a total wreck. And suddenly I felt this huge body underneath me, like in my mattress. And he put his arms around me. And I passed out, fell asleep. And I had the most wonderful sleep that I have ever had in my life to this day. It was just out. I just slept heavy, good, had a great night's sleep, woke up, could barely open my eyes. I was in such a deep sleep. And when I woke up, the room was foggy. And all I could see were these big feet and hands in a very crouched down position, big feet and hands crouched, and then I saw these hands go whoosh, and this energy hit me. This positive love energy hit me, and my heart was just suddenly okay. Suddenly I was okay, and I was functional. And I've had so many other experiences where, you know, I recall one time where I was having another, just being upset, feeling very lonely, feeling very upset, and then suddenly felt him underneath my head, his legs underneath my head, and having him just like stroke my hair and just assure me that everything was going to be okay. So you know, I'm 100% convinced that Sasquatch are non-threatening, and I know for sure that the only way you can have anything to do with them is if you have pure 100% love in your heart for them. And that you have to match your vibration to theirs, and as humans we tend to have such a low vibration most of the time that's why they stay away from us. But for the humans that can elevate their heart space and have that love, then you have the chance at experiencing something just out of this world phenomenal. A love like you never knew existed. And that's what I know Sasquatch to be, is to be loving healers, to be medicine people, to be caring and kind and compassionate, and in my case, to be there when nobody else was, when there was nobody else who was going to comfort me. They came and comforted me and showed care.
So yeah, my first encounter, conscious, that I remember was in April '83 in the petrified forest of Arizona, where I snuck in hitchhiking and spent the night in the dunes there. And it was a bright night, probably a full moon. And I saw a Sasquatch come walking from behind the dune. And we looked at each other, and he sat about 100 feet from me. And I could see him very clearly, all how he was, how he looked, but I could see through him a little bit, like he was like a hologram type of apparition. So it was my first experience. I didn't understand very well. I had encounters with the spirit world, like departed souls or animal spirits before, so I interpreted that as a vision. But right away he gave me teachings. He animated for me 3D images of when is the time of when his people walked with the dinosaurs in that place, among others, of petrified forest where a lot of dinosaur bones are exposed. And I found out much later that there's a lot of petrified human-like footprints. There's the famous case of the Paluxy River in Texas that was finally destroyed and covered up, but there's photos and evidence of it. But I saw just last year half a dozen places in the Painted Desert where you can see those very clear. Petrified, bare feet, human footprint, but they're much larger than average human. And some are dated 200-300 million years. So that's a proof right there, without a doubt, that there were tall humanoids walking on the planet back then, even before the official time of the dinosaurs. So that was my first teaching from them. So I went to Vancouver Island. So after 10 days, I did a ceremony. And I did some chants with the drum and played the flute and called on them and on the good spirits. And that same night, that's when Camus came. First I heard 3 knocks, very, very loud. 2 of them getting closer, and then I heard 3 shaking and breaking, getting closer and closer, and then I heard his footsteps coming my way. So I knew it was Sasquatch, and he was coming to meet me, as I had asked. And he came and sat behind my tent, about 20 feet. And right away I could feel his psychic power really, really strong. And so I talked to him in my spirit, and I said, I come in peace as a relative, and I want to learn from you who you are. And he started right away to teach me and give me an information download. So that was the beginning of our friendship. And I thought I couldn't speak about it to any human being, or people would think I was nuts or crazy or making this up. But the following week I happened to be on the Slattery Reservation, one of the Coast Salish tribe who are very familiar with Sasquatch. Everybody has a relative who knows Sasquatch there, and there was the International Indigenous Leadership Gathering. And I got there early and talked with the elders and chief, and they heard my Sasquatch story, and they were very interested. And before I knew it, people were coming to ask me about my encounter with Sasquatch, including some elders. And they wanted to know what Sasquatch told me. And I was still processing it. But that was very important to make me understand that this knowledge is out there. It's always been there, and there's spiritual circles that are carrying it, that are ready to receive these teachings. So the following week, I was near Yukon, picking wild mushrooms, and I first saw tracks for a couple of days, and then I had a face-to-face encounter with another Sasquatch relative, Bolo Bolo. He's about 8 feet tall and brown. And he was about 200 feet from me, and we looked at each other, and my first reaction was, because my fear had gone of them. So I was like, I'm so happy they come again, like, oh, hi, friend. And he was like surprised and shy, and he crouched and looked at me and said, who's this guy? You're the guy who knows us Sasquatch, And we started talking, and we was very friendly, and he was around for a few days. That night I saw his face over me and smiling, and the next day I was teaching him some songs. It was a very fun process, and so I knew from then on that my life had changed, and they would be with me all the time, and we would communicate, and they would give me teachings, and that these teachings are very precious and need to be shared. And that's what they told me. They said, we would like you now to write this information for your people in your words. Then they gave me 4 promises. Since the beginning, they said, we'll keep coming to you, you'll meet us along your way, we'll keep giving you teaching. And that has been ongoing for 3.5 years. It's a constant learning experience with signs and manifestations and understanding coming. The second thing they said, more and more people want to hear about us, and they will open to this message, and this message will have great resonance. And before I had written 5-6 pages or chapters, there was already an international audience and people backing me, saying, oh, you should do a book with this, and we'd like to help you and everything. We know, like 3 years later, there's 3 books in the series, The Sasquatch Message to Humanity, with the 3rd book written by 10 co-authors channeling Sasquatch. And that's the third promise. They told me, you're going to meet more and more people who meet us, who know us, and we're going to reach out more and more. And more people will share what they learn from us. And that's been happening on an exponential speed. The last 3 years, pretty much everywhere I go, people I meet online, groups we've started, and this event here has been gathering dozens and dozens and hundreds of people who have Sasquatch experiences and interactions and communications and channels.
Well, I had a beautiful experience of actually seeing a Sasquatch. It happened on the Navajo reservation. My soul brother, my star brother, Garrett Duncan, he took us to his family's, I'd say the summer home where where the sheep and the cattle, they would take them up there, and when Garrett and his brothers and sisters were kids, they'd stay up there. So we were lucky to go up camping there, And we're walking, and I believe it's like a little logging road. So there were about 9 of us walking around, and I happened to say, oh, I wanted to see where the families, where they had their sweat lodge. So I started looking around, and people, in fact, Garrett was right behind me. And I happened to stop, and I looked like, what is that? I had this, it was from the back, so beautiful, long, black hair. Didn't look like what I had seen people say that Sasquatch looked like. It wasn't very big. It's actually more on the narrower side. So it's very thin. And I kept looking. And Garrett's behind me. I'm like, Garrett, trying to get his attention. And he didn't respond. And finally I kept doing that. He said, what? So I turned. I said, look. Of course, it was gone. And what was interesting is that my mind, the logical mind said, maybe that was someone else. Maybe someone happened to walk by, or maybe it was a bird. The rest of the people in our group saying, you know what you saw. I said, but why did I see it out of all of the 9 people that were there? I wasn't even looking to see a real Sasquatch, because I have the ability to work with them on the spiritual level. So I was comfortable with that, not even expecting to see them. We heard them loud hoots and calls the night before when we were doing offerings of corn. And it was just amazing. It's not like what you'd see on the TV shows like Finding Bigfoot or something like that. You didn't have to try to listen hard. They were yells, hoots, calls to the left of us and further, like to the right. And I remember hearing them so loud, and I said, Garrett, is somebody doing ceremony? Because it's just this oddness of this loud sounds. He said, no, it's them. They're excited to see us. So, that natural fear of the, okay. He said, stay in your heart space. So we did, and we offered the corn. So the next day, it might have been a way to acknowledge that we connected with them. But I just thought it was the funniest thing that of everyone, I was not really looking to see them in the physical form, and yet I saw one. I've just been blessed with the ability to connect at the spiritual level with the Sasquatch. I always believed in Sasquatch, even growing up, just believed them to be the guardians of the forest. So I'm a control freak, I have to admit it. So when someone said I would start channeling, I thought, yeah, there's no way, because I want to control everything. And it really wasn't until I was little less than a year ago that I let my guard down. And I said, finally, I'm ready. And I allow only those coming from the heart space at the highest vibrational frequency to speak through me. I also found out that I'm a trance channeler. So generally what that means is I'm not present at the time. So fortunate for others, unfortunate for me, I don't know what I said. So I've had many people record it for me, and I'm listening going, that makes total sense. And I'm realizing, that's my voice, or very similar. So it's really odd to be listening to myself communicating when it's not really me. So it's just been amazing. So I've really got them wanting to channel, wanting me to send a message. There's a young male with us, and he wants me to share. He has curiosities, so if you don't mind, I'm gonna let him come through. What are you doing, humans? I am curious. You have this equipment that I have seen before, but yet you are not using it to hunt us. I find that very interesting. We are taught to stay away, to hide, to not show ourselves. But yet, you are different. I feel that you are reaching out to become one of us with sharing our messages, our stories. And we thank you. The elders have sent me as an emissary to find more about what you have been doing these many days. We understand that it is a means for you to share your human experiences with my kind. We will be present with you. We may appear to you when you least expect it. As this one says, keep your hearts open. When your heart is open, the fear is not there. And this allows us to connect from heart to heart, which is how we connect as a people. I thank you for allowing me to bring forth this message, and know that we are here as guardians of the land, as teachers. When you are ready, we will be there to work along us beside you, to help you to grow, to help you to reconnect with this land. With much gratitude, I bid you farewell. Whew. Hi. I felt a lot of love there. Well, I'm getting a feeling of curiosity, more so. I don't recommend leaving your equipment out. They may come and mess with it, adjust the settings. Generally the young ones. The elders are learned to respect. As you respect them, they respect you.
My name is Clifford Mahudi. I'm with the Zuni Pueblo people. I have had a few experiences with Sasquatch. I come from New Mexico, and there's a lot of forest around there. And my experiences has been with when I used to go up to the mountains around the south of our reservation. We were sitting around, we were in the campfire, and then the first thing that happened was that we heard something that was up in the trees that like something ping sounds. And then they say, hey, listen, what's going on? So we all listened, and the second stone was thrown. And you could hear it up on a tree, and then it drops. And I told my brothers and my cousins, I said, it's Bigfoot. And they said, well, how do you know? He said, because that's the way they do things. And while we were sitting there, then the bigger rocks started falling down. And so we kind of got scared. So I said, well, what are we going to do? They said, well, let's just sit here and see what happens. About that time, he threw a big log up on the tree, because we were up, the mesa was here, and they were right over here. So he might have just thrown a big rock, a log. You could hear that hitting the limbs, and it fell down and said, it's Bigfoot. So we ended up all night sleeping in our trucks, just to make sure that we don't get hurt or we were all scared, really, basically. So, but that was, we kind of laughed about it the next day, but there's a lot of things that happen out there, and usually what happens is that after Bigfoot is around, there's usually flying saucers come around. In that part of the world, There's no houses. There's no towns nearby, so we'll be out there, and usually there'll be some flying saucers come about. But so that's our tribe and our people in the village has known about flying saucers for thousands of years. So that doesn't bother us because we look upon them as our keepers, as our guardians, as our caretakers of the planet.
Well, one of my first experiences with Sasquatch was in Mount Shasta. It was around 2012, August of 2012. I started having dreams and visions of Mount Shasta I'd never been before. Very much so just like Sedona, having dreams and visions of Sedona. So I allowed myself to listen and follow through. So we arrive in Mount Shasta. We're there for 2 weeks. I'd never really camped out like that before, so I wasn't really knowing what to expect. I had my camping gear and whatnot. We're out hiking. I start hearing this voice, if you will, coming into my head, saying that you're going to be walking in the woods alone. I didn't think that that's possible because I'm surrounded by, several people that were with me on this journey. I say to my friends in our camping group, I'm going to get some water right here at the little water thing. I'll be right back. This is right around the bend. I went and filled up my water bottle, no longer than 2 minutes. I come back, they're gone. The whole group is gone. There was a 55-year-old woman with them and younger children. There was no way all these individuals could have got down the mountain that fast. So as I'm walking, attempting to catch up to them, knowing that if I just run, I'll, shouldn't be too far off. At that time, I start to notice the animals are starting to surround me. Butterflies at first, it's a butterfly, no big deal. Butterflies, grasshoppers, dragonflies, chipmunks, squirrels, hawks. Like, wait a minute. These animals are all kind of gathered. It almost felt like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, as you will, where you're looking at them like, if one of these animals speaks, I'm gonna have a moment. And as I'm standing there and I hear, that we said to you that you would be alone, I'm looking around like, who's speaking to me? Am I being pranked on camera or something? But this is on Mount Shasta. There's nobody else up there. So Sasquatch was communicating telepathic with me. I wasn't even aware that Sasquatch could do that at the time. I absolutely thought I was having a mental breakdown. And all the animals that were there, all just standing perfectly still. And I actually took pictures, of them. And I heard, "Welcome home." What do you mean, welcome home? You are an emissary, an ambassador, if you will. For what? For who? For us. Who's us? Who's us? For your other beloved ones that have been with you since before you even could remember. Okay, well, that's interesting. So for the next 2 weeks on Mount Shasta, I started having experiences. I heard very clearly, take photos. I don't take photos. Well, you will. So I started taking photos on my camping trip. And of course, these things started coming through on the camera. I'm not a professional photographer by no means. I understood none of this. But these big balls of light appearing. They look like fairies appearing. All real. And so that was the start of me being a bridge, if you will, of sharing the messages to those that what we were told was not real is real. And if you're open to it and you're open to belief, it'll show itself. I'm not saying that you have to take it at face value, but at least be willing to go out and check for yourself. It's always good to be skeptical. I'm highly skeptical. I was already told, you know, if you hear things, feel things, see things, that you could be crazy. Okay, well, let's find out if we're crazy or not. Not so crazy. Angels, fairies, orbs, ETs, Sasquatch. A lot of people have an issue with these beings because they can't feel them, see them, or hear them. And yet, we feel. We feel all the time. How often do you get goosebumps? How often do you get a gut feeling? How often do you get that sensation on the back of your neck or the sensation on the top of your head? These are all ways that the body picks up, I guess what you would call the sixth sense. And the more you use it, the stronger it becomes. Intuition is a very natural gift. And for those that use it, it becomes as natural as breathing. Where we're dealing with individuals that are telepathic or that come from the higher realms of energy and frequencies. What does that mean? Well, if you're a person that is closed off or in fear, you're vibrating at a low vibration. A low vibration cannot hang out with high vibration. If you've ever been, perfect example, someone, if you're high vibrational, always positive, feeling good, and you're around someone known as a Debbie Downer, always wanting to complain or just not able to appreciate or have gratitude for life, after being around them, you feel very drained or exhausted. Same for the spirit realm, if you will. If you come from a place of love in the heart, that's a high vibrational frequency. Love, joy, peace, happiness. That's where they operate at. That's where they dwell at. So it's no surprise when people say, how is it that you can see them or feel them, but I can't? Have you done the work? If you have not done the spiritual work, the soul growth, misery loves company.
The second time I communicated with the Sasquatch was at the second annual Psychic Sasquatch Conference, 2 years later. This is no ordinary Bigfoot conference. This is a conference where the Sasquatch people actually attend themselves. The energy there is incredible. Over the first 2 days, I felt them all around, although I couldn't hear them or see them. But somehow I knew they were there. Then one night, everything changed. I was hanging out up at the amphitheater with 4 people. Shakara Tosha, Garrett Duncan, and Darrell Stokes. There was total darkness and quiet, except for some strange clicking noises coming from a tree. At one point I heard heavy footsteps walking across the stage, and when I looked there was nobody there. I heard a faint telepathic voice offering me a healing. After a moment's hesitation, I agreed. I didn't know until later that there was a spaceship there. After a good length of time, it seemed to be over, and the 4 of us all stood up. That's when I realized I was having trouble walking, and so was everybody else. It felt like the world was spinning in circles, and I had lost my center. We wobbled down the trail, laughing hilariously. I was told I had just received an activation. That night, I felt like my body was electrified, and I was seeing visions, and I was hearing voices. I didn't sleep all night. And then, I started hearing the Sasquatch speaking to me telepathically.
Oh, 12 when we were up at the amphitheater. There was like 4 of us. It was me, Hell, Garrett, and Shakara. And it's pitch black up there. And we started hearing knocks and taps, and we started hearing pings and things being thrown. And then we look up, and there are lights going on in the sky. And I'm taking photos, and there are things showing up that, well, seeing is believing, because there they were, and we could feel it. We felt the temperature change, and we all got zapped. It's like all of us were kind of put like in a stasis mode, because we were like, one moment we were there, and then it's like, what happened? Does anyone, matter of fact, we were all laying down. We were all laying down, and we were out. We were out. We came back like, what happened? We couldn't even walk right when we were trying to walk back down the trail. We were all zigzaggy, and we have not been the same since. That year transformed all of us, and every single one of us now, the 4 that was up there, has been highly activated. We're now doing more. We're bringing more understanding and awareness to others than we even thought possible.
So we were headed to Garrett Duncan's sheep camp because Gail and Garrett are our BFFs. I them a lot. And we stopped at a place in New Mexico, and we were camping, and my dad was present as well. And we got there after dark, so we hadn't got to see anything. And so he's using his flashlight, and he's scanning the campground, and he stops and turns his light off and has this like, oh gosh, look on his face. And you had seen it actually by then already.
Yes,
You take over.
So off in the distance, next to this stage that was a campground stage, there was a very tall, dark brown Sasquatch standing next to the stage. Just incredible. It is an incredible sight. I didn't really see his face because he was pretty far off, but I sensed that he is a male. But I could see his entire outline. So it was just incredible. And so we called Carissa over, and he turned the light on again.
And so my dad turns the light on, and I look, and I also see the outline. He's kind of stepped half behind the tree, and so you see the crown of his head and the brown fur coming down. And I immediately, because we're there on this trip to connect with the forest people, so I'm like, Dad, turn off the light. You're like offending them. You can't keep shining the light in their eyes. So we made him turn the light off. And so Gail came over after that, and I wouldn't let them shine a light on just for her to see. But we had a lantern on at the camp, and we wanted them to come closer. So we turned off the lantern and all went night blind, and that up the suspense. And we sat down around the fire, and even though we had seen one ahead of us quite a ways, as soon as we turned those lights off, we felt them behind us, like right there. Kind of testing, but then also just kind of showing the love, and that was a great evening. So since we were introduced to the Sasquatch, to the forest people, I've had several just in their etheric form come hang out at my house, and they have the most amazing energy about them, and I feel like home. And they come and they remind me to play. They telepath me subtle messages. I've not had whole conversations in English because I don't even think that's necessarily how they communicate. So they'll come and just nudge you to play, and they'll nudge you to go ground. That's how they work with me. They remind me to go outside and be in the forest, because I tend to overlook things like that when I get hectic in my busy world.
And I've gotten several guides throughout the time that I've been working with them. There's one, he's a blonde Sasquatch, and he also gifted me with the rock, and it has his portrait on it, and it's blonde. It shows his little blonde face, or his large blonde face. He's a very happy, always smiling from ear to ear, and he comes to me, and it's almost like putting butterflies in my heart, because it just causes flutters of joy, just pure joy. He's very loving, one of the guides that I had gotten was here last year in, I guess it's the meeting hall. We were vending, and it was just Carissa and I in the hallway, and all of a sudden I started smelling jasmine very strong. And I was looking around trying to see if there was anybody around with perfume or something on, and there was no one else there. And then I was told it was female, and her name is also Jasmine, but she smells like a jasmine flower. And so she is also one of my guides now. She's very soft, very loving. They are with me in my house all the time. They're with me in the cars. And they're pretty much with me all the time. Always such heartfelt joy and love. I use many of their teachings in my healing work, and I know that they also help in my healing work. So they're very beautiful.
Yeah, I don't know what she has to say yet, but there's a younger one. And she's told me her name is Riri. She's not saying anything. She's like filling my heart space with love right now. And she's happy. She's like behind us a little ways. Gratitude. Gratitude. They are grateful that we're here with open hearts, ready to work with them. She is grateful. Apparently, they've had a lot of fun watching us interact here together, and they're grateful for that. They are ready to connect more with people who are of an open heart, who are ready to meet with them. They are ready to share their teachings. They are out there, and they will find you as much as you find them.
I know that they love when we drum to them, when we play flutes,
Yes.
when we sing. They absolutely love it. And they are not particular about the song you sing.
No,
They
anything.
love any
Lullabies.
silly, lullabies, Christmas songs. They just love the vibration of song. And they also love for us to dance. They love for us to be silly. And above all, they really do like us to play.
Yeah,
They like us
play
to
is
have
important.
fun.
It helps to remind you who you are in your heart, so it's important.
So let's first begin where it all started for me personally. I've always been a weirdo and a weird kid, and I've always felt extreme love of nature, trees in particular, and in an awe and magic of the woods. And recently, my mom called and she goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm going to the Psychic Sasquatch convention in Tooele." And she's like, "Oh, she's like, ever since you were a little kid, you were waving at your friends in the woods. You're still such a weirdo, Mom." So, but the whole adult Sasquatch didn't happen until about, I want to say like about 4 or 5 years ago. I was looking at my bookshelf like I do to find a book I wanted to reread, and I see this book sitting there, and it's Psychic Sasquatch. And I didn't buy this book, and I still don't have any idea how this book appeared in my bookshelf. I have lots of books, but that wasn't one I had picked, and I knew that if I had, I would have remembered. So I read this book, and then I read it again because I felt so connected to these stories and these people and the way Kwani writes, and I felt it in my heart to be right. And with me, if it doesn't feel right, it's not right. And that felt right. So I meet my soon-to-be husband at the time, and he says, "Do you read?" And I said, "Yeah, I read." And he said, "Well, what did you read last?" And I said, "The Psychic Sasquatch," to this new person that I, didn't really know. I tell him that I'm reading this Psychic Sasquatch. Long story short, he sees that, because he reads the book and he falls in love with the book, and we get the second book and we're reading it, and he starts doing some research and he finds that there's this convention coming with the author of this book. So I'm like, oh, hell no, I'm not going to this thing. This is as far as it goes for me. I'm a weirdo, but I don't think, I was really fearful. And he pushed us, and by pushing us, he meant he bought us tickets. And I was like, okay, I'll go on an adventure. And this was 3 years ago, the first Sasquatch convention. And but before that happened, I had a really terrible, terrible headache, like the worst headache I'd ever had. And I was really scared, and we were trying to decide if I was going to go to the hospital or not. And I was at his apartment. And he said, it says in the book that we can ask Sasquatch for healing. Do you want to ask these hairy guys if they may give you a healing so you can go to sleep? And I said, I'll do anything. I'm in so much pain. And so he said, Sasquatch, can you please help me with this headache? And I fell asleep. Well, I'm sleeping and having the most magical dreams of my life. And I wake up from a dream where I'm sitting in a fire circle with 3 hairy beings and this woman that I've never seen before. And we're singing this song about love. And as I'm waking up, Aaron's going, "Where have you been?" And I was like, "I've been sleeping." And so he lives in a one little bedroom apartment at the time in Seattle. There's one room, kid's room, and then hallway, kitchen. There's no place to hide. And he said he got up and I wasn't in the bed, and he went down the hall looking for me in the kitchen and the bathroom. And he thought, well, maybe I had just left in the night. He goes back into the bedroom and I'm there sleeping. Weird. So in the morning, once we wake up again, because that's a really freaking weird thing to have happen, I went online and I started searching for the author, and I see Kwani, and I start looking through his stuff, and then I see a picture of him with Kelly. And guess who the lady was in the dream? It was Kelly. So it's just gotten weirder since then, and wonderful and magical. And I know that we have big brothers and big sisters in the woods, because I've had more experiences than you could ever imagine with these amazing, loving beings. And they've brought us into this amazing place year after year to meet more people just like us. And not all weirdos, doctors, scientists, realtors, every kind of walk of life, elders from different indigenous nations who've had stories for generation after generation of these amazing beings that just want to connect with us. And I feel very fortunate to be a part of this.
Hi, my name is Rainbow, and I have contact with Sasquatch. I'd like to share a story with you. The first time that I had contact with Sasquatch was in the year 2010. And I was meditating where I live in Nevada, in the forest. After meditation, I could sense them everywhere. And ever since then, I've always known that they exist. Back in about 2014, my daughter got sick. I have a wonderful daughter who happens to be medically fragile and special needs. Well, this year she got really sick. Went to the doctor, took an x-ray, chest, found out that she had pneumonia and Pseudomonas, and it was hard because I don't want to go back to the hospital. You know, we usually spend a long time in the hospital, about anywhere from 2 weeks to a month, sort of depends. So that night, I was beginning to pack up my bags so I can go to the hospital. And then I thought, you know what? No, I'm going to do something different, something that I've never done before. And I go into my daughter's room, and has a high fever, and she's losing oxygen in her blood because she's connected to a pulse oximeter, and you know, I'm reading her readings, so it was scary for me. And about 2 years ago, I bought Kiwoni Lapsaritis' book, the first and the second one. And I remembered a story about a lady named Haloti, who is a shaman lady, a shaman, ancient one, that he talks about. So I prayed to her. I telepathed to her. And I said, "Can you heal my daughter? Please." Of course, I introduced myself before that, and I waited. She shortly telepathed to me, and she said, "In 3 days, your daughter will be well." That was it. Immediately, there's this intense vibration of love, completely encapsulate my daughter. This is what they do. They heal. They love. Sorry. And they want nothing in return. They want nothing. The three days went by, and I called her doctor. And her doctor said, "Well, gee, I didn't see you register in the emergency room," because she knew how bad my daughter got. And then she said, "Well, all I said was, there was a false alarm." She said, "No, wait a second. I need to make sure that she's well." And Sophia was right there. Sophia's my daughter. So we went to get another x-ray. And there was no pneumonia. It was clear. And she's been doing better and better ever since that healing. And I am so grateful to know that they exist.
and they're with us. They're everywhere. And to me, they're just like us. So, that's my story. Thank you.
I was asked to be a mediator for a Sasquatch clan, and I had never been involved with Sasquatch or anything, but I was and am an intuitive. So I was asked by friends, can you come to a home where a family needs help? Something has happened at their home on their farm and they need help. So I immediately said yes. I didn't know why. And so I was sent to their home. Immediately what happened was on the property they had a pond and they were jackhammering the dam, and the dam broke and all the water from the pond flooded a cave that had been underneath the pond that they didn't know was there. And the family immediately went inside the cave and started taking out rocks and artifacts and carvings and all kinds of things. And they had, taken these things away. And then the very next day, Sasquatch came all over the property and put muddy handprints all over the vehicles, all over the farm vehicles, all over the homes, 2 homes. And it scared the family to death. They were in one of the smaller homes on the property, and it was being inundated with activity, banging, slamming on the doors, claw marks all over the doors, hair hanging all over the banisters, and muddy handprints inside the cars. So they left the property within a short amount of time, and I was called in 2 years later. So I walked down to the pond area. This is 2 years after the destruction and after they had taken all the things from the artifacts. I had not met the family yet, but I went down to the pond and immediately toned into the woods that I'm here in benevolence and to gather information to assist the family and to assist the clan. And immediately I was gifted information in 2 seconds, telepathically, that this family had taken artifacts from their home, that this cave was actually the clan's home, long time home. And I immediately felt the anger. I felt the sadness that the Sasquatch had endured. And I believe that it may have even, at this point, I am understanding it may have even injured one of their babies. There were adults and babies in this clan. So I immediately left with this information and walked up and gave this interpretation to the homeowners that there were Sasquatch on the property, that this was their home and that they had devastated it. And I knew right then to ask, what did you take of the Sasquatch? And she knew exactly. It was a box and boxes and boxes of rocks and stones. One of them was radiation burn. Gave her a burn on her hand so bad she ended up in an ER because it was from another source. Microwave radiation on this stone. And she was afraid to touch any of them. But once I told her that this was what had happened, that what they needed to do now to gain peace on the land and peace with themselves was to gift back to them the stones, make an apology, make a ceremony back to them and apologize. And they did do that. And there was peace on the land weeks later. But the Sasquatch learned how to communicate with this family, but the family couldn't take the communication. They actually went inside the home after the family abandoned it. They went inside the house and they actually put drawings all over the walls of what had occurred. There was water rushing. There were rocks. There was land. There was ponds drawn. There were faces all over the walls, drawn with crayons and markers. And it was the complete story of what had happened. But I didn't see that until after I'd gotten the message and told the family what had happened. And they did have me come back out about a month later because they thought they found a Sasquatch graveyard. And they didn't know how to approach it or even to go back into the land. How could they go back into the land? And so I taught them how to tone into the land. And there are ETs on that property, and she has seen them walk across the pasture each day at 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. with 2 Sasquatch babies in their arms, like babysitters. Every day she watched that. And then, so it was benevolent until they accidentally ruined their home. And so then it became a different process for them.
How many Sasquatch do you see around right now?
It's a feeling.
It's a feeling.
Or do you feel?
There's tribes. There's still this ancient one. Is kind of, he went over there, but he's kind of came back and looked. They're very protective of this land, which they should be. But there's a couple different tribes. There's and all of our tribes. You know, each person that's at this gathering is bringing their tribes. It's like huge family reunion.
Yeah.
So they're meeting each other for the first time.
Yep.
And then there's a couple ancient 2, 3 kind of groupings with children. It's almost like they got dressed up in their Sunday best. They're presenting themselves, you know. And then there's a couple little ones that are kind of curious. They're looking around. I don't know. And there's a family back there. I feel like maybe 4 or 5 different tribes just from this area. They've come from long distances. They're very, very curious about us.
Yeah, because
They're watching.
the tribe that came from our lands, the Navajo Nation, they already said they're with me, you know, they're with us. And then you have Colorado, so that group that's out there. They said it's not just you guys that are coming to see us. We're also bringing our ambassadors, our tribes who are coming to see you. So I got a message yesterday coming up when all this was going on. They said it's not just you guys are bringing your color. No, there's some Yetis coming. There's some Australian ones coming. There's some. So it's a gathering for them just as much as it is for us. Yeah. It's amazing because they were showing me all shapes, sizes, colors. The galactic ones, those ones come in very bright. So they have like pink fur and highlights. Those are the galactic Sasquatch. So they don't even live here. They stay on the ships all the time and do their work. So they're asking why you're filming. They don't.
They don't understand.
They don't understand. So we're just kind of trying to explain it to them with the telepathic right now. These are a new group. The elders that were coming through earlier for me, they knew. They knew, but this is a brand new group who has they haven't even had human contact. That's what they said.
They're very curious about us. They don't understand why we're not just telepathing. All right.
Oh, what the? Ooh-ah.
Very, very, very ancient. Ah, okay. They're asking to honor them in this land. We came in their land. We need to honor them. There's some kind of honoring song. And then it's like a key. Can I sing a song? Are we on? Yes. So these elders here are asking for an honoring song for them. And the song that came to mind is this rock calling song, because even there are trees here, there's rocks underneath as a foundation, so I'm going to sing that song in Lakota. Tuatokia takielo hey yo. Tuatokia takielo hey yo. Waziata tongaya te wataya naya opitelo. Tua tokia takielo heyo. Tua tokia takielo heyo. Tua tokia takielo heyo. Waziata tungaya te watayani anaya opitelo. Tua tokia takelo heyo.
There is a prophecy among the Navajo, Hopi, and other indigenous tribes which speaks of a whirling rainbow. There will come a day when people of all races, colors, and creeds will put aside their differences. They will come together in love, joining hands in unification to heal the earth and all her children. They will move over the earth like a great whirling rainbow, bringing peace, understanding, and healing everywhere they go. Many creatures thought to be extinct or mythical will resurface at this time. The great trees that perished will return almost overnight. All living things will flourish, drawing sustenance from the breast of our mother, the earth.